Hello everyone, I'm Karen, and along with my co-host Salma, we want to thank you for joining us on today's special Ultimate Health interview. In today's show, we're going to be joined by a special guest, and it's Erin Elizabeth from Health Net News. We're going to be talking to her about weight loss. We're going to be talking to her about Lyme disease and her history with Lyme disease, and we're also going to be asking her about her analysis on the shocking increase in holistic doctors who have died under questionable circumstances. So we are really looking forward to today's conversation. But before we get into this interview with Erin Elizabeth, let me tell you a little bit about her. Erin is a longtime activist with a passion for the healing arts, working in the arena for a quarter century. Her site, healthnetnews.com, is just over 3 years old, but has already cracked the top 20 natural health sites worldwide. She's also an author, raw food chef, investigative journalist, and public speaker. Welcome to the Ultimate Health Summit, Erin Elizabeth.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate it so much.
Oh, well, we're thrilled. We're thrilled. I got to say here, we are intrigued how someone who has gone through all the things you've gone through, Erin, including Lyme disease and vaccine toxicity and mold toxicity, breast surgery, how can you look so fantastic? Like, take us through, talk to us about your healing journey. And, we know you went through some really, really, really tough times. So, talk to us and, how did you arrive at today?
I think the biggest part, and I was thinking this while I was driving home in the storm tonight to be here, and I thought is just to never give up. And for me, it's always that you remember that light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, that's really just my message that I do my best to remember every day when I have challenges, like we're dealing with mold again, so hurricane renovations, but it's always to just remember that they'll make it through, and to keep a sense of humor. I mean, if you wanted a really quick, that's like the real, some of the highlights of the quick answer. But I think that much of it has to do with, I've been very fortunate to have a group of people around me who have helped me as well. So to seek out the best people to
support you. Yeah.
Yes, and to help with the healing process. And I think that is essential. So that's made a big difference. And I don't know if I'm really doing that right now, but also initially when I got the Lyme diagnosis, to really slow things down, because I realized just that I was going way too fast, even with things in regard to daily life, but also exercise. I've been just doing this high intensity, just going and going and going and gaining and gaining. And once I slowed down, everything really changed. And sometimes I have to remember my own advice and get back to that, because then keep on track, because it's not always easy to maintain that and to stay on track. So my own, with what I've learned.
Yeah.
What was your career like before Health Net News? I mean, this thing has just skyrocketed, and the articles are so interesting. I could spend hours and hours and hours, which I have. But what was your career like, before, and what is it like right now? It's crazy.
It did. In some ways, I thought that having the website would slow it down from before, but I'm not sure at this point that maybe initially, but it's gotten a little crazy in a good way. So that's good. Traffic and the people we're reaching, which is wonderful. I ran raw vegan retreats just up the coast about half hour. So I ran that for a number of years, and it was just really rewarding, because I feel like we were able to help so many people. And I had the place right on the beach, brought in about 60 people for most, except one. Almost every retreat had at least 55, 60 people. So, but I learned after several years that could be very stressful, because especially when you're dealing with people who some have late stage cancer, illness, autoimmune disease, health challenges, and they need special attention. So that was very rewarding, but a little bit stressful, as especially since I was going through my own health crisis at the time and not even sure what was wrong. I still had the implants in at that time and didn't know that one was leaking. So besides kind of living in Florida, no matter where you live, you're always kind of fighting the mold. Living inside mold, I had mold living inside me. So I definitely got burnout after several years of doing that, although I loved being able to have the retreats that helped so many people.
Right.
And still ask, when am I going to do retreats again? But I don't know that that'll be in the future, because I think it was just spreading myself too thin for me to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
But yeah,
So,
I took it online. I guess instead of helping like 50 to 60 people per retreat, I wanted to, and that was more specializing in raw foods. We brought in chefs, did everything from scratch, which was totally crazy, and would have a chef there, and I'd be bringing in the produce, wholesale, and just doing everything from scratch. But now I realized that I could probably use my talent could be used better spent helping a bigger group on.
right. So maybe you can do virtual retreats online.
Yeah, oh, that's an interesting idea. Sure, right, where people would come in and do like a virtual retreat. I like that.
Yeah, you could serve more people. You only have to deal with yourself and whoever else is there.
Yeah, I like that.
Get that chef in here and he can do all the cooking and be another Gordon Ramsay here, you know?
There you go. I love it. Yeah. I love it. Definitely want to do, once we get the house renovated, I own Hot Mess Kitchen, so I want to do lots of videos in the Hot Mess Kitchen. I mean, it doesn't really have with many things I do, I don't really have a business model, but I just want to do more in the kitchen with showing people how to make food simply at home and simply and inexpensively. So
That's the key.
Simplicity.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Simple. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple and reasonable.
Yes.
Right? For sure. So you've managed to keep off a massive weight loss, Erin. How did you do it?
Well, I was gaining more and more weight, and even a year after having the saline implants taken out, so they were leaking, I went under a 5.5-hour general anesthesia surgery with propofol, and now I've learned that's the Michael Jackson drug that it's built in from a shot. And so I was on it 5.5 hours straight while they're scraping out mold and scraping out what's, the implants and the capsules and putting me back together again, which my surgeon in Atlanta was just phenomenal. So she did a great job aesthetically, but it definitely took a toll on me. So a year after that, I was still gaining. And for me, though it would work for some people if they didn't have any health challenges, going in and doing these high intensity workouts and then lifting more and more weights and doing more and more cardio. So I'm doing more cardio and running. I'm going to lose the fat. And at that point I'm 5'10", so I am tall, but I was probably, and being very petite, like I'm pretty just petite built, lanky, but I was probably close to a 40-inch waist, which for some people that may be fine, and just depending on their body size, but I'm an ectomorph, so I'm very slender, lanky, and that was really huge. And it was the cortisol levels that had gotten so high, and I realized finally, had that aha moment after doing a year of after the implants, because I was so sick with the implants I couldn't work out at all. So a year later, I'm still doing that. Then I get the Lyme diagnosis, and when I saw my cortisol levels were that high, in fact, so much they did an ACTH test on me thinking I had Addison's disease, like what Robert F. Kennedy had. So I know you both would know. So they were sure that I must have Addison's disease. My cortisol levels were skyrocketing. And I just thought, wow, I saw an article and that I just caught my eye before I had my own site. And so I thank whoever put that out there. And I don't remember where I saw it, but it was talking about if you're going to be doing these, you're going to be running, are you running yourself? Are you becoming heavier because of that? So I just did it overnight, everything switched. It took me about 2-3 weeks to stop being in denial about the Lyme, because I was like, nah, I can't have Lyme disease. I've had a test for that already. But it was a positive Western blot, and the number of doctors who I'm fortunate to have in my circle confirmed it was real. And besides changing my diet, I decided I've got to slow it down. This high intensity isn't working. So I immediately switched to doing yoga and Pilates. And really it was the Pilates more so than the yoga, because now all these yoga places, at least here in the States, have turned into like this power yoga, go and competitive, and not really what I did in the yoga when I started in the 80s. So, and then kind of gave it up. But really with the Pilates and a smaller group and a little one-on-one, that just slowing it down. And I think I wouldn't recommend losing it this quickly, but that was 2013 actually, just because I went to my high school reunion. So that would have been 4 years ago. I went to my 20th high school reunion. So I'll have next year, the 25th coming up. It was a little bit of a goal. I wanted to go finally get back to a high school reunion. And I probably went from 160. I went from a size 14 with being as tiny as I am. That could be great for some people, but it was all fat for me and little muscle. And I went to a size 6 in under 90 days, and I have stayed the same ever since. And that was 4 years ago this month that I had the reunion.
And so you had mentioned to us that the trick isn't losing the weight. The trick is keeping it off.
Keeping it off, right. So, I could I think lose, and I've done it before. I had yo-yoed. So I had done it before where I had lost weight like that, but then I'd immediately go back up. So so the reunion's over, and then it started to just creep back on, and I thought.
No reason to look, slim and trim.
Why do I have to? Exactly. There's not another event right now. I think I didn't even have the website. Yeah, I didn't have the website 4 years ago. So I wasn't on camera. No one knew who I was. So it didn't matter. And I just, the weight was starting just a little bit. Like I will say 4 years ago, I probably put 10 pounds back on. And then I thought, wow, this is why we don't diet. I don't like the word diet, because I was more dieting, but I have to make this a lifestyle change in order to keep this off and not creep back up to the point where my doctors were worried and did a DEXA scan and tell me I'm 50% body fat because I'm an ectomorph. I don't gain muscle like some people who could be the same height and weight and be in great shape. I wasn't. So I made those changes then where I still haven't gone back to, for me, just personally, having had autoimmune challenges, gone back to the high intensity workout and just sticking with the slower workouts, slower eating. I worked weaning myself off of a lot of the sweets, and one of the way was, like, I liked ice cream, so I would use some like organic or even homemade almond milk, put a little chia seeds, and then Dr. Lee Cowden and a couple others, it's a medical doctor I know, they had used their stevia was used in a study that showed stevia could be better than antibiotics for the Lyme. So I would use that stevia, not the stuff at the grocery store, but the real stevia, and put it in there, and that would be my sweet, to satisfy my sweet cravings. And now I really don't have sweet cravings anymore. And if I do, I can have something with a little stevia or something healthy as opposed to refined sugar. And slow down my eating, slow down my exercise routine. And the biggest challenge, which still is a challenge, is to just slow down my day-to-day life. I'm sure you know how that is, right?
So what was So what kind of things were you eating? Were you are we talking paleo? Are we talking some low carbs or, something particular? Or did you specialize in something that you put together yourself?
I think it was more because I would hear, oh, you've got to do, of course, even back then, so we're talking 4 years, the keto, because Joe has been my significant other 8 years, Joe Mercola, Dr. Mercola, Joe's all about doing more the keto, though he's changing that as well and saying that you can do cyclical keto, but if you're doing constant keto, then, and just like there's people telling me they're on no carb diet, so neither of us believe that is healthy. So I really didn't, for me, well, there are a couple things, and I think this is essential, whether you're doing keto, whether you're doing paleo or any of that. I think for me, there are a couple things, getting rid of I was eating organic cookies, organic ice cream, organic pizza. I cut a lot of that out, but also the other secret would be that I cut out a lot of foods that didn't have a high water content. I found that if I were eating more foods, all these dried foods, I don't think our ancestors really were eating, potato chips or even if they're healthy, organic, or even these blue corn, organic chips or whatnot, I made sure it was 100% organic, or as organic as I could be. And if people I know that can be expensive, go to the farmer's market. We grow a lot of our own, but also to get rid of so many foods that have had the water content sucked out of them that aren't natural. So I was doing a lot of whole foods where it would be just by nature would have water content. So I still did fruit. I did fruit and lost the weight, whereas other people said, "Oh my gosh, you ate fruit," but I didn't eat the refined sugar. So I had no problem. And I don't know if you put stock into into blood types. I am an A. So if that were true, I know some of the doctors like Lee Cowden, he puts a little stock into that. If but I don't know if that made a difference. But for me, I kind of thrive a little more on a little more plant-based. But yeah, I had fruit, whole fruit, not the dried fruit. And
Right.
I didn't have a problem. It's still.
And it tastes good.
Yes, it does. Yeah. So I know that may be against what some people think out there, but it's from nature, and I just, it's hard for me to imagine that we're supposed to not eat any fruit at all, or it's just like.
And there's, so many different philosophies out there, and I think at the end of the day, everybody has to do what they're comfortable with.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, you said it, and I did leave that out because I think each person is different. So
Yeah.
I see so many arguments. It's worse than sometimes politics or religions over food, but each person is different, and you're exactly right. And that none of us, two of us, are the same. So we're each going to, what I may have eaten, which I went into detail. I give a book away. I talk about that, but I always state in there that everyone is different. So what might work for me might not work for someone else.
Right.
Well, you've had quite a struggle with Lyme disease, and you said about, finally you got some tests that were done and it was positive, but for a long period of time, it was always negative, right?
Well, I'd only done one other one. I did the ELISA test, which
Okay.
it's like $50 or something, and it is much more affordable, several hundred for the Western blot test, no matter who someone is going to use. There are only a few companies, one or two in the U.S. who do it, or not many around the world. But when I had the Western blot, it was positive, and it made sense because I had a tick bite on an 8th grade trip where we're a little bit chillier weather in the Midwest and had long pants on. And I think we just went, you're in 8th grade, you go the weekend without a shower, and it was on the back of my leg for a lot of that weekend. And I did after that have a lot of joint pain, and they'd say because I was getting so tall, growing pains. We were at the orthopedist and different places trying to figure it out, and it did begin, a big change began right after 8th grade, right after that tick bite. So I think I probably had it. So I was a little younger than some of my class, but like 13. So probably, had it over 30, had it, near 30 years.
Wow.
Long time.
So, so you have the symptoms and everything else there too. So what was it, did you use, is there any antibiotics that were described for you by your doctor? Any kind of supplements? Like, how did you kind of get through those hurdles there?
I didn't want to just consult, went a little crazy. So I had seen Dietrich Klingart. He's in Seattle in the past. So he's a Lyme literate medical doctor. So I'd seen him in the past, seen Lee Cowden, and consulted with more than one doctor. And I am fortunate to have, and I don't even know if I had the website up to be able to do that. And then I paid another doctor who I really didn't know for these consultations online. And I suppose that was helpful as well, but he had never met me, and I had met the other doctors. And so in the book, it's just, I don't charge anything. I do go through my exact protocol, but for me, I decided to decline antibiotics, even though especially Dr. Klingart would use them in his protocol for some patients. But I'm adopted, was born very sick, spent the first 2 months in a hospital of my life, no mother, of any kind. So nurses, I guess, so that would check on you. And I was very sick, and I was on antibiotics because I've been born with severe thrush and wasn't even able to be adopted for over 2 months. So I just didn't feel, I've been on antibiotics so much in my life that I just felt that, especially with studies coming out like the stevia can be even more as effective, not more effective than antibiotics, that I wanted to take a more natural approach. So I did. I guess I helped with doctors' help, certain, and I always tell someone they would want to, if it were me, I would consult with a Lyme literate medical doctor, but just design kind of my own protocol that worked for me. And it would be hit or miss. And I would rather do the herbs for some of the things they wanted me to do than like the malaria drug or something one doctor suggested. And I wasn't going to take this.
Not that strong.
Yeah, it was also very expensive for people, but I felt that the herbs really helped me. And I learned that, because I had an accident a year later where I had 3 fractures and a torn shoulder. So that was like just over a year ago. And I learned that it's also just like that with diet. It's a lifetime maintenance. So with the autoimmune disorders, I think initially I thought, oh, I've done the protocol. I feel great. I'm better for life. And people will say that, but I'm very open with my audience and explaining that, yeah, sure, an injury of that kind that I had in Nashville at an event that had 3 fractures can set you back a few steps, and that's okay to admit that and to get back on, to do maybe more, get back on a protocol, do supplementation again, which I hadn't been doing. And I think from traveling to see Lee Cowden out of state at clinics and different Lyme doctors that are near retirement, but from talking with them and some of even their patients or the people who work with them, that it is kind of a lifetime with some of the autoimmune diseases, or even if you don't have one, just with our health, it's lifetime maintenance that we have to keep up. So, but yeah, I go into detail what supplements worked best for me. I didn't really do any medication. I tried low dose naltrexone for a little bit. I really didn't stay on that. I did, and maybe a little bit of nystatin for the fungus, but otherwise I was not on any pharmaceuticals. So yeah, for my protocol, but I understand each person's different.
Right. Now my question to you is, at which point of your life did you become a health advocate, and why would you want to start Health Net News?
Well, it was a slow process in becoming a health advocate. I definitely was by the time I started the retreats in the earlier 2000s, but I think living in Los Angeles, it just by default I got into health just because of the health food stores and the influences around me.
Right.
And they were everywhere. So that would have been in my 20s, but I still would be also kind of not have a problem with eating junk food or genetically modified foods, which I don't even know in the 90s if I was sure what those were. In the early mid 90s, probably discovered that later in that decade. But it was a slow process. So then I think what really clicked for me was when I moved, I left California, I love it, but very expensive. And I moved in 2004, right before all the hurricanes began, to Florida. And I lived right down the street from an organic juice bar. So they were like 4 days juice bar and a market, and they're on the ocean. It was pretty amazing. So you could go sit down instead of a bar. You're in a more healthy environment, having organic coconut juice and maybe a durian and a green juice that someone that he would actually use an old-fashioned press to fresh squeeze. And I would meet people there, some of the most influential people probably in my life, and they don't even know it, there, who were these health nuts and health advocates who really influenced me. And then I saw, and that was before the health challenges began, but they were such an influence on me that's what then inspired me to start the retreats, doing that like pretty much full time. It consumed my life, and doing that here in Florida. And I saw how healthy and happy they were. And I think that's
probably, and you said, that's for me, that's for everybody.
Yeah.
How are we going to do that, right?
Yeah, loved it. Yes, definitely. It's been with it since.
Good.
Erin, I really like this quote from Marcus Aurelius. And he said, when you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to life. And what I think he's describing, that's a stress-free life, right? But you talk to people now, stress is just
that's number one
out there. Yeah. So what are some tools? I know you do the Pilates and everything else, and you've got a social, but what are some other tools that you can use for, staying calm?
Yeah, that's my biggest challenge in life, I think, because I don't know if it's hereditary, knowing my birth family now, or just all the things that I've gone through, but who knows? Part of it is hereditary, so we're just by nature type A, lots of energy, a little bit wired. And I think the number one thing that comes to mind was there was a very wise old man, this is a true story, quickly, and he said to me, when it's like today, there's a downpour and a torrential storm and all this, and he says, you can either just, some people in the storm are just going to be, oh my God, this is miserable, my life, or he says you can be Gene Kelly and you can be singing,
dancing
in the rain,
dancing and singing in the rain. And so that would be to give a quick kind of analogy of what I do my best to remember. I also think that so many of us, and myself included, I'm guilty of this. I'll say, oh my gosh, there's that, what is the old, there's the story, it's the journey, not the destination kind of thing. So I know some people say, when I get to retirement, or when my kids move out, or when I finish this degree, then I'm going to get to where I want. But really it's a day-to-day, every day-to-day. So I fully admit that I don't always follow my own advice, but I think even just taking 5-10 minutes here and there to meditate at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day makes such a big difference. And I know that I need to seek and take my own advice. And
again, we have all the tools. We just have to open the toolbox once in a while, right?
Yeah.
And remember what's in there. I mean, because I was, journaling. I've been journaling forever. I do automatic writing, all those things. But again, when you're so busy and you're just focused on this, got to do this, got to do that, you think, what is off? I haven't meditated for a while. I haven't done a gratitude journal for a while. And then you just, okay, I got to go back to that.
Well, we all get exactly, and we all get thrown off our schedules, whether it be an accident or whatever it could be in somebody's life, or an illness of a family member or anything. And that's the hardest part, is to take the time and to stay on track with the day-to-day. Journaling's great too. Yeah, another thing. Sometimes I'll do it for my writing, I write for the site a little bit.
Right. But even the concept of time, people, they work 12, 14 hours and, they have these meetings for going for hours and hours, but nobody thinks, I need to take that 15, 20 minutes for me. It just seems like, it's, and sometimes we'll take it for somebody else, but when it comes to us, you think, I don't have time, right? I'll fit it in, but we never do. We've got this and we've got deadlines and we have that. So it's that society that's, we're involved in. And I mean, that's why probably how many people like to go to your retreats, you've got somebody that, takes care of this or something. It's just away from that.
Oh yeah, it is difficult, especially with the internet, because as you know, it's 24/7. So I have been, it's hard. It's even hard for me to express into words, but there are times where I have worked too hard, too many hours, where I have not taken the breaks I should, especially with the holistic doctor stories, where I guess I felt guilty. I felt guilty kind of covering them, but guilty not covering them and keeping up on it, and the growth happened quickly. So I didn't make that know how to make that work with my existing life without working constantly. And when you have an accident, like I broke my foot too in the accident and shoulder, then I could say, I'm laid up anyway. So that's not the thing to do. If you have a setback, really you don't say, oh no, that's okay now because I can't do my walking or exercising, and I couldn't for a while. I'm just going to work 15 or 18 hours today is probably not the way to do it. So yeah, that's why.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
They say keep my foot elevated as much as possible. So I'll keep it elevated and sit here and have it at elevation at the desk and work literally from the time I went up till I went to bed. So how I found that is that I had to learn the skills, and this is kind of the top of my head, to delegate things out to others. That was as the site grew. I just hired less than a month, or maybe a month ago now or so, a full-time assistant where I had to delegate that out. And I think having been raised Catholic, and nothing against Catholics out there, maybe it was a guilt thing that I had to do it all myself. And I didn't even have I had no editor, which was obvious in the stories, but now I have an editor, I have a full-time assistant, and even just those two, with the three of us, with the team that we make now, allows me to take a little bit, I'm learning slowly, we're getting there, because now, we're to take a little bit more of the break and delegate those things out and not have to have complete control over everything that goes on with your business or your website. And I think that's that was a big learning experience for me and humbling, and that somebody else could do it. And
I know. And you think, oh, well, nobody can do it like us. Now I've got to train them. And then I got to do this. And oh, that's too much. I'll just do it all myself.
yeah, I
That's
did that.
pretty much how it is.
Yeah, I did that for over 3 years. And then I thought, wow, this is ironic that I'm running a natural health site and I am preaching this information, but not always following it. I could harm my own health. And they say, but you can't, put your own oxygen mask on first, or if your own cup is empty, how are you going to, you got to fill your own cup first as well, kind of analogy. So yeah, that, like you'd said earlier, so that was important. And then when I can do that and take care of myself and help and let others help, accept help, even if you're hiring or whatever the case may be. And in some cases, it might not be hiring someone. It could be just a time in someone's life where they need help from friends and family, and allowing that help in can be hard for people. So.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us a little bit about this Holistic Doctor Death series that you reported on. Tell us a little bit about
I
that.
appreciate that you're open to that, because some people, it depends on who, if I'm doing an interview, if they'll want it, that's what all they want to talk about, or they don't want to mention it. So I appreciate that.
It's important.
It began 2 years ago next week on June 19th that we had Dr. Bradstreet, was the first in the series of many of 60 to 65 doctors, now mostly holistic, who had died under unusual or mysterious circumstances, which I find out are more unusual as I talk to more of the family members who come forward to me. I know the Bradstreet family, for instance, and I won't go, I just kind of stick with him, and that there are many, many other doctors, but many of them, one more, Nick Gonzalez, who his wife has said, they said, oh, it must be a heart attack. They do the autopsy. His heart was fine. So there's so many cases like that, whether it be alleged suicide or like Dr. Gonzalez, alleged heart attack, but his heart attack, his heart was fine, no heart attack. So I think that I learned some valuable lessons there, because the injury happened right. I think I started and then got injured. And so I really allowed myself to be too drawn in, kind of like in the movies where they then tell the guy, you got to take yourself off the case, or take a week off, or and there was nobody there telling me, because I was doing it all. So I became too involved, but also I felt there were so many emotions. I also felt the guilt of the traffic exploding through that. And at the time, I don't think I would have ever said, if somebody had asked, that, oh yeah, I'm working too hard or I'm suffering, because there were families that I'm talking to who were grieving, who had lost their family members. But I think it really, for some reason, it affected me very much emotionally. I know one friend who kind of works as a therapist, who said maybe being adopted, because I lost my own, as an infant, lost those people that the mother who gave birth to me, that maybe I could relate to it more. But who knows? I think a lot of people that are, not just me, that are just concerned and really feel for the families. And some have their own investigators they've hired, and now finally in the beginning, near the beginning of the unintended series, like Dr. Marshall, it's being investigated, and the medical examiner's office is being investigated, not by the families, but by like the State Department of Health in Washington. So they're looking at the two doctors who ruled it an accident, when it's obviously, I think in that case now, investigators are saying it was murder. So it brings up a lot of emotion, but I think the main thing is that it was I think that there was some guilt involved at the beginning, like, oh my gosh, my traffic was doing well, but I never expected an increase of traffic, and it was not intended. When I wrote the story on Dr. Bradstreet, it was because I saw headline news calling him a quack, saying he killed himself in a river, and I thought someone needs to write a more just unbiased story about what's happening here, not these just, and then the family surprisingly thanked me, and we became friends and did these interviews, and then as the deaths increased, I just decided that I needed to keep on it. I still, even from the health community, have people who are unhappy with that, and then people who are thankful. So it's a mixed bunch. There, not many people say it, but some in the one or two people in the health community are upset, because they think that it would make holistic doctors afraid to practice. And I am friends with a lot of holistic doctors who are in practice, but when I speak at these events, some of them spoke at Parker University, it's 3,000 doctors sitting in the audience. And I want my message to be that if anything, they're going to turn up the volume. They're not going to, we're not going to let, because these doctors have died, whether they're connected or not, to silence us. And I also think that now that I have a better perspective and I'm able to not get quite so emotionally involved, though it's still very emotional, I think when people would say, I never state whether they're connected or not. And I think at the beginning, when it's just like in life, so people would criticize me, oh, you're saying these are all connected. I never state that. And no one should bully a journalist over, and it's not the families at all, but there were just people who are strangers who would want to say, oh, how dare you say it's a conspiracy. Never use the C word. And the journalist or whatever someone's doing in life, they can't be, I think, bullied or they're trying to, tell them not what to do, what to write or not to write. I think people need to write and express their feelings or just report the news as I was doing. So,
well, I can identify with you because I worked as a reporter for a newspaper there too. And what you do is, presenting information you get from the family. You're saying, is this coincidence? You're saying information, he's healthy, he died at 45. I mean, it's suspicion or something like that. But at other people's interpretation, but that's not you, because I've read some of your stuff and it's just, people's interpretation. Oh, it's conspiracy. It says, pharmaceutical companies or something like that, but you've never said that. So, kudos to you and just coming and being honest and saying, we need to take a look at this. Is there something more?
Yes, and I try to do my best to state in every story. I don't want to sound so repetitive, but I don't have any evidence as to whether.
No, you don't. But
none are, all are. I have no, I don't know. So
no, that's right. But you're just presenting information, and other people interpret it in weird kind of ways and everything else. So then that's good.
Yeah, and I never imagined that it would go from like writing about Lyme disease or healthy recipes to writing about the deaths of these beloved doctors. But it was, I just thought it was important because you might notice nobody else was, and that's what I really didn't understand.
Exactly. And it's just, you got to put it out there and just saying, is it more than coincidence? And the question is, and then somebody else thinks about it. Well, maybe it's this interpretation or something like that. And that's how you gain information.
Well, yeah, and my hope was, and I talked to a few seasoned reporters and probably who worked in arenas like you did, who said, you know what, some really just said, just cover, they've been crazy, just any doctor who died, but that would have, obviously there, but as far as holistic, there were in a very small, short amount of time, there were a lot of top influencers who died. And I felt that, I just needed to report on it. And I was always hoping, and it still may happen, if there was, that it just will be investigated, whether it's the government agencies or a top investigator who just goes out there. And we've had a little bit of this happening with a few of the doctors, but that they would really go out and look at those deaths and look more closely at them. And because there are so many that are unsolved. And
right.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting to solve, even if you look at them individually, what happened. Dr. Gonzalez's wife, Mary Beth, had dinner with her. She's come to watch me speak at events where I've spoken about her husband, and she just wants to know what happened to her husband.
Sure, of course, that's normal.
Yeah, they were married many years.
Well, and you've got a platform, and why not bring that information? I think that's good. Good for you. Good for you.
And I know some people were afraid, because just whether they have a site or just posting on Facebook to talk about controversial things, but sometimes I think that's what's necessary to push the envelope a little bit.
Just to open people's eyes to what's going on, because a lot of people don't know. Right. And for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they have so many, and also I think now, since thank goodness it appears that it has tapered off, which is good, that then to bring also their information forward, because these were some of the one thing they have in common were the extreme. I don't know about links or, with the deaths, but I can say the pattern besides so many holistic doctors dying in that amount of time was that they were extraordinary people with important information, that they were with helping patients and putting them in remission and everything else. Long term too.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, our series is called Ultimate Health, Living Life Well. What meaning has that for you, Erin? And, give us some practices that you do on a daily basis for living life well? What works for you?
I would say for me that and it's not, well, there are two things, there are two components. For me, it began with really what I was eating, I think, but some people will think that that's the only component. And I was like that for a while, where if I'm just eating healthy food, even like when I was laid up and injured and working without a break 15 hours, and actually by the end of the day, it was so late, be talking to myself saying, okay, do this, you got to send that. I have to speak out loud to myself to keep myself awake and keep working into the wee hours of the morning. And that's not what I suggest. So it's balance. I'm a Libra, so I think that balance is key. Yes, diet, that they're not just, I know people say, oh, like I said, 0 carbs. I'm not eating any carbs. I haven't eaten carbs in 30 days. And no carbs. I'm not even sure how they're existing. So maybe they could have a little more balance. And the same goes for me. And also with work, that you have a balance with then play or relaxation and getting more rest. So for me, a big part of it is balance. And even though I'm a Libra, I don't always have the balance, and the scales can get skewed. But
I think that's the challenge of Libra, trying to keep those scales balanced.
Keep those scales balanced, right? So, and no matter what anybody's astrological sign too, I think that we all have our challenges. I know I have mine. So I think a sense of humor is important, like I said earlier, but some of the practices that I would do, well, is because I still can occasionally want that, like that unhealthy food. So I just don't even have it in the house. And then another practice would be, and I'm not always by any means perfect at doing it, but kind of leaving certain words out of vocabulary, like the HATE. A lot of people will say, oh, they say it all the time. And so I'll do my best to leave those out of my vocabulary. Or people say, another one that somebody taught me is they before I forget, because we all say these things over and over. And if we're going to say before I forget, we're probably going to forget it, because we're saying before we forget it. And we'll say, while I remember, I need to ask you to do this. And I think a lot of it has to do too with my relationships with other people, whether it be a loved one like Joe or family members, and I think even with my own audience too, that this would go for family too, because I feel like we kind of are a family sometimes too. I always say to put our differences aside and celebrate, put the differences aside and celebrate our commonalities, all the things we have in common. And I do that with my family for sanity's sake. So because we might not agree on all the health things, and in fact, on some are complete opposite views, but we put that aside and to look for the positive. And that's another thing. In day-to-day life, even though I'm writing sometimes about things that people will say it's scary, or like holistic doctors dying, or whether it be they're spraying in Florida and other states with Nalet or Dibram is the name brand for the Zika virus and all that. I also want to balance that with putting positive articles out there as well, and the same in my daily life, to have time for positivity and to always do my best to keep a good outlook on things. I think another thing too is to set, which I didn't used to do. I think it's because I went to this boarding school. It wasn't anything fancy. We're in these 40 of us in a dorm room. My dad said it looked like kind of the military, but they had us on such a strict schedule that I think when I was finished, high school, at college, I didn't want any structure. But I think now that I'm, years later, I'm realizing how important structure can help, and to keep a good schedule. To even, I know it sounds a little bit extreme, but sometimes I'll even have a bell, just and not trying to be like Pavlov's dog or anything, but have a bell go, it's a nice chime to remind me to, if you have things, or set it in your schedule, or have whatever people do, if they look and have, if they have that schedule. I think that's extremely helpful, at least for me. Some people may not have to write that stuff down, and I don't know why it took me so long to realize that, but that makes a big difference too, is to keep a bit of a schedule, but then sometimes you can be, just spontaneous and do what you want to in there as well. So spontaneity can be good too.
Okay, so inquiring minds want to know, how'd you meet Joe?
Oh, okay.
Because I'm nosy.
Oh, sure. No, it was through the health retreats. Oh, that's so funny.
Oh,
So it's 8 years ago this year, just in a couple months this summer, that we met through the raw vegan retreat.
okay.
So,
Okay.
and how it happened, I'll tell you real quick, was, and it's all, I feel like I manifest many things in my life, and some are good and some are bad. Like I haven't quite understood my relationship with the wind and the storms. We lost a house in the tornado in 91 growing up. So like I've been through a lot of storms, but I'm still figuring that out. But with Joe, I manifested a great something wonderful. So I had the retreats. He got an invite somehow to one and wrote me a letter. It was in the summer before my birthday in September. And so he said, so September will be our 8th anniversary being together. But he said, I saw you have this website and I can't make it to the retreat. I didn't even know we got some, like on Facebook. It was actually through Facebook. I have them to thank that he got some kind of invite or a notification on it. And he took that opportunity to write me. We were friends, but I just thought it was I just thought it was somebody managing his account, but it was really him doing it all himself because he hadn't yet learned to delegate a lot of things out either. So he would do everything morning, noon, and night, but he's so much better. He always says when he speaks publicly and I'm there, he says, I want to thank, my sweetheart, but it's usually for people say, oh, for being a wonderful woman. No, it's bringing him to Florida because he loves it, getting away from the city of Chicago where he is. And right now, and I have to go there next week. But so he wrote me and he said, also, I saw your website and I would suggest a few improvements for your health retreats. And I see your birthday's coming up soon. So I'd love to help you. Think of it as an early birthday present. Sincerely, Joe. And so it was so weird and it took me all day where I thought, is this a joke from a friend? Is this really, because he didn't know that I followed him since 2001. And at that 8 years, now 16 years going on 16. And so he didn't know that 2 weeks earlier I had written on my aunt's page, who I've known my whole life, and that's one of those relatives where we don't see eye to eye on everything, but he had posted an article, and I said, I love Dr. Mercola, Anna Lisa. I said, he's from Chicago too, where we're both born from Chicago. I said, I really hope to meet him one day. 2 weeks later, I get the letter, wrote him back that evening, and he wrote back 2 seconds later, what's your number? And I put it in there, like, I'd love to give you a call sometime. The phone rings, and so the rest is history.
Oh, nice.
Now that's a story.
Yes.
I'm so lucky because having found my birth mother, finding a book she'd written about giving me up that I've discovered in the library and all these great, so I do my best to concentrate on those positive things and realize that, we all have things we may, whether we manifest or they just happen to us that we don't like, but also to concentrate on the good stories and that they outweigh some of the bad ones. And there's always balance. Again, I guess it brings us back to if everything were perfect and good, that would not. So
What would we have to talk about then?
What's that?
If everything was perfect and good, what would we all talk about?
Exactly, right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it shows you have balance. I mean, you're just a beautiful personality, a beautiful soul. So we can't thank you enough, Erin. They're just, there's just something about you. It's just drawing, and you're just compassionate and caring. And thanks for all the good work that you do. And, thanks for being with us on this
And
interview.
I'm so glad you're delegating now. That's good.
Good.
Now we have to learn how to do that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, I know. And I'm still, like, it's a work in progress. So,
Yes, yeah.
But I'm
doing that.
day by day, I learn. So, no, thank you. It's an honor that you asked me to be
Well,
here.
thank
So
you for
inclusive.
sharing your story and even the romantic part there too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're incredible. You're incredible. So thank you very, very, very much. We're honored that you enjoyed us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And big hugs to everyone who joined us on this Ultimate Health Summit interview. Until next time, live life well.
Bye, everybody.